The story of No Man's Sky is an interesting and ongoing one. Originally announced at E3 2014 from developer Hello Games, a small indie studio based out of Guildford, England, known for their previous work on the Joe Danger games. No Man's Sky released last year. The game was a full-price product straight from the Sony marketing and hype machine on display proudly at their conference in the years prior. And financially, the game did fairly well, eclipsing the 1 million mark within the first week of release. However, critical reception of the game was a different story. Destructoid's own Chris Carter said in his review, "No Man's Sky isn't quite what I thought it would be. It's a fun sandbox game that's full of wonder, until it isn't," which perfectly captures my own experience playing the game at launch. In my first day with No Man's Sky, I was blown away by what I experienced. After leaving the atmosphere of my first planet and turning my ship around, I felt like I was only scratching the surface of something much bigger. After exploring a number of different systems, however, that depth soon became shallow. That feeling of scratching the surface quickly became a feeling of scraping the bottom of a barrel. Throw that in with extreme stability issues on both PlayStation 4 and PC, many of No Man's Sky's user base were upset, to put it lightly. Previously in the 6th generation hardware and beyond that, once the verdict was out on a game, there wasn't much the developer could do afterwards. Even today, with modern conveniences of online updates, some of the issues in a game can't simply be patched away. Some issues lie within the mechanics of the game itself or the story and writing, things that would require drastic changes to fix, which most developers and publishers aren't willing to do for a list of reasons, most of which being financial. Most developers will simply call it a day and move on to the next project, doing the best they can to address what they can and when they can, to a point. But No Man's Sky doesn't necessarily suffer from these issues. No Man's Sky was marketed under the pretense of exploration and somewhat of a technology showcase of what they accomplished with procedural generation. In many ways, the game was somewhat of a clean slate. The idea to explore procedural generated galaxy is something very tangible and could still easily be built and expanded on, which is exactly what Hello Games then did. Over 3 months after the game's initial release, and after patching a number of stability issues on both platforms, we would see the first major update that would introduce new features, appropriately named the Foundation Update. The Foundation Update would introduce a number of new features, starting things off with base building, letting you create your own base and designate a home planet, with various new items to craft, new resources to gather, and new technology to create. Before this update, despite the goal of reaching the center of the galaxy, ironically, I felt No Man's Sky was somewhat aimless. But with base building, for the first time I felt like I had something to work towards, an actual reason to head back to specific planets for various resources I required for expanding my base. However, not everything is perfect. Actually finding a place to build your base is somewhat of a pain. If you find a planet you like and then want to construct a base on it, you'll first have to actually find the base itself. The Foundation Update would also introduce farming, allowing you to grow various resources, as well as craft new technologies such as harvesters, for example, which in turn made mass resource gathering much more automated, so you could stockpile those credits, which you would definitely need. As the update would also introduce a new ship type in the form of freighters. These massive ships allow you to store a vast amount of resources and construct a base and farm within them as well. On top of that, they can also be summoned from anywhere and travel to different systems for more trading opportunities. But the next big thing of note was the addition of 2 new modes of play. First up, we have Survival Mode, which, truth be told, I'm not really crazy about. When you start the game up for the first time, instead of being next to your crashed ship like in the normal mode, your ship is instead crashed a huge distance away from you. Your mining tool also only gathers half the elements it normally does. Your life support system is drained much faster, especially when sprinting, things take more resources to fuel and charge, and of course, once your ship is repaired, the launch thruster is completely drained every time you launch your ship. In my personal experience, I didn't find this mode more difficult, but just more time-consuming. Meanwhile, on creative mode, the game basically has no restrictions on fuel or requirements for crafting, allowing you to craft anything you need at any time or purchase anything you want. I'd say this is the perfect mode if you want to plan out your base before constructing it on the normal setting, or just experience new features that otherwise might take forever to achieve, like buying and checking out different freighters, for example. Nearly 5 months later, we'd see the release of the next major update from Hello Games in the form of the Pathfinder update. The highlight of this update was the introduction of vehicles, known as exocrafts, allowing you to traverse your home planet in a vehicle straight out of Revolt. And as cool as these were for a brief while, personally I rarely ever used these and found them to be pretty pointless, as you can only summon them on other planets by constructing a geobay on that planet, which involves a bunch of other resources when instead I could just fly around in my ship like I normally would. You can also construct a set of checkpoints for other players who might stumble on your base to race in an attempt to beat your lap time, but personally, once again, I didn't really bother with this because someone actually finding your base is slim to none. Which brings up the next highlight of this update, online base sharing. Players now have the rare opportunity to potentially stumble on your base if they manage to scan and locate your system. The update would also include other minor things such as customization options for your base, as well as PlayStation 4 Pro support with added graphical fidelity, new ship and weapon specialization options, and the ability to now own multiple ships if you own a freighter. The update would also introduce a new game mode known as Permadeath, which can basically be summarized as an Iron Man mode. If you die, the game is over and you have to restart from scratch, which in my own case was because of space pirates while I was too far away from a planet or space station to escape. Bringing things to recent times, on August 11th, 2017 to be exact, No Man's Sky would receive its largest update so far, known as Atlas Rises. This update would also celebrate the game's 1-year anniversary, and in my opinion would be the update that also answers the question in the title of this video. Up first, the update introduces a whole bunch of aesthetic changes, from an overhaul of the graphics with higher resolution textures, to an enhanced UI and start menu, updated cockpit for your ship and analysis visor. The galaxy map has also been updated to be more easy to navigate and includes new information from how wealthy certain systems might be, to what the economy and conflict levels of certain systems are. The update also introduces a new feature in the form of the terrain manipulator, allowing you to manipulate the terrain around you in various ways, or in my case, poorly attempting to spell the website. The update also includes a number of new general improvements across the board, such as new planetary biomes to discover, the ability to now discover crashed freighters on the surface of planets, interstellar trading with various new items to sell between systems, and improvements to space battles, adding a host of new weapons to utilize. You can also now fly lower to the ground as well, allowing you to have planetary surface dogfights with those pesky pirates or sentinels. The update also introduces a new mission system, which is where my first complaint for this update comes up. For example, if I'm doing a mission for the Explorers Guild, scanning various elements on the surface of a planet made sense. But when I'm doing that again for the 10th time, but now for the Merchants Guild instead, I immediately lost interest in these. Another new feature added in this update was portals, which can be found on the surface of various planets, allowing you to teleport to previous planets you've visited, or bases you've previously visited, or randomly teleport to a new planet altogether. You can also collect glyphs as you randomly explore, allowing you to travel to a specific planet if you have the correct glyph combination, or address if you will, of that planet. Another new feature that was added is joint exploration, allowing for up to 16 players to potentially explore together and meet up with one another as floating orbs. However, it's also extremely unlikely. You can't just simply invite your friends. The multiplayer has been integrated into the game itself through this new update. Whenever you start the game, you're also technically now in a randomized lobby of 16 people. If you want to locate someone, you'll still need to be on the same planet as them. And considering the massive size of this game, finding any of the 15 players you might be potentially in a lobby with won't exactly be easy. And lastly, the biggest feature to No Man's Sky since launch is the addition of an actual story. Avoiding spoilery details, the story is roughly about 30 hours of content, most of which early on acts as a tutorial of sorts on some of the game's features for newer players. But the story also does add some much needed lore to the universe of No Man's Sky as well, and after having completed it, all I'll say is this: things get pretty damn meta. A year later, had it not been for this latest update, I personally couldn't recommend this game. This latest update, however, was the tipping point for me though. The addition of an actual story, lore building, dialogue, and mission system gives this game a sense of direction and the inhabitants within the game an actual purpose. The addition of bases, new features, and the potential of multiplayer in the future will only continue to add to this game in a great way. Hello Games have also done a solid job ironing out the stability issues as well. During my roughly 40 hours spent with the game making this video, I never once had a crash or freezing issue, but it still does have its share of bugs. As I said at the start of this video, the story of No Man's Sky itself is an interesting, but very much still an ongoing one. But with that said, I can't help but think if they released this game originally on Steam's Early Access program at half the price it was originally released at, the perception of No Man's Sky would be very different. In my own video review of the game at launch, I said No Man's Sky is memorable, but memorable for all the wrong reasons. And for many, that statement still holds true. Most people have cast down their judgment on the game and don't intend to return to it. For me personally though, I'll always remember No Man's Sky, not for the game itself, but for its developer Hello Games, and how despite all the negativity at launch, listened to the critical feedback, hunkered down, and continued to improve this game over the next year. Delivering now what I believe to be something special for their fans and community alike, and hopefully they'll continue to expand and improve the game, as I still think there is quite a bit of work to be done. But No Man's Sky is now a game which I can wholeheartedly recommend, and developer Hello Games is now a developer that I can deeply respect.